Chapter 1 from the Kingdom of Wishes by Lucas Miller. In the kingdom of Rosas lived a maiden named Asha, who served in the castle of King Magnifico and Queen Amaya. She dusted the furniture, washed the rugs and curtains, mopped the floors, and prepared the meals. She was a poor girl who lived with her mother Sakina and her brother Sebastian in a round stone cottage with a thatched roof and a purple door with azaleas surrounding the walls. Although they had little, they were always happy, for they were rich in love. Her father Antonio was dead, and Asha missed him dearly, for the thing she loved best about him was his gift of stories. Castles in far-off lands, fairies, witches, and dragons, damsels in distress, gentlemen handsome as gods, tender as doves, and brave as lions. She remembered the evening they sat upon an outstretched branch of a great willow tree on a precipice overlooking the ocean, gazing at the sky as the stars appeared one by one like little diamond specks in a ceiling of darkness. My father once told me the stars are not merely flaming balls of white-hot gas, but people, immortal, wisest and fairest of all, who live in a kingdom of their own, watching over us, guiding us as we run the great race fate has marked out for us. And if we ever feel lost and confused, those stars will always be there to guide us, if we listen. On the southeastern coast of Rosas sat the mighty city where the king lived. It was set in a mountain and shaped like a ziggurat, filled with Grecian and Ottoman architecture of white stone bricks and blue barrel tiles, with a great castle at the top. The castle was shaped like a pyramid in terraces, with a tower streaming from its center, with marble statues, arches, pillars, inscriptions with Greek and Latin sayings, and a great blue dome. A stone bridge supported with tall, thin pillars extended from the northwest, adjoining the castle with the great arena where the events were held. Whenever Asha approached the great doors and gazed up at the castle that seemed to be reaching for the clouds, she thought of how blessed she was to be part of such a place, if only as a humble servant. Every year, the king evaluated potential candidates for the apprenticeship of the magic arts, for he knew what it was to feed the hungry dream of knowledge, that he might use his gifts in the service of men. He could be eccentric and quick-tempered, but he was always happy to see his students succeed as long as they showed him proper respect. She had submitted her resume and was summoned to the king's study for an interview. There were many candidates, but only a few were granted an audience with the king himself, so Asha interpreted this as a good sign. Still, it was with some trepidation that she ascended the great staircase with the queen. At home, she had practiced her speech 1,000 times, yet the closer she came to the tall doors, the more her mind felt like a blank slate. Would she be dumbfounded in his presence, or would she be able to look him in the eye and say her piece? The apprentice should always keep the fire going because the king likes his tea hot, said the queen. He also likes to talk, so don't speak unless he asks a question. Yes, your majesty, said Asha. Some items may seem strange, but why a sorcerer needs them is not your concern. He will explain them in his own good time. And above all, do not expect to see the wishes either. Only a select few are given this privilege. The queen opened the doors, looked kindly at Asha, and with a gentle nod of her head, motioned for her to enter. Asha swallowed loudly and froze for a moment, but quickly moved and crossed the threshold. She found herself in the library, and it was one of the most beautiful places she had ever seen. The floor was decorated with white marble and blue and copper tiles. The walls were lined with books and statues of philosophers, and the ceiling was made of a perfect crystal filled with facets of light from which 5 glass lamps hung. Asha, mesmerized by its mysterious beauty, turned twice as she gazed at the ceiling, sparks of zeal shining in her eyes. Wait here, said the queen. I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. With these words, she closed the doors, and Asha was left alone. Asha quickly overcame her nervousness, for the artifacts and books sorted on the shelves piqued her curiosity. She walked past the wall, reading title after title, when suddenly a voice from behind said, "Good morning." Asha gasped, turned around, quick as lightning, and stared at the man before her. He was tall and handsome, with thick hair of silvery gray and a beard carefully shaven. He wore a cloak and tunic of creamy white with dark blue trimmings and golden stars, and held a silver staff with a crystal flame. His face was ageless, yet his eyes were deep and told of many years of experience. Such fiery blue eyes they were that gazed into Asha's dark brown ones, and she felt as though he knew her better than she knew herself, and she could tell not only from a flash of his eyes, but the curve of his lips, he was indeed a great king. Asha took a deep breath and pulled herself together. "How do you do, your majesty?" she said with a bow and curtsy. "Are you ready?" said the king. "Yes, of course." "Good, let us begin." Magnifico moved to one of the tables from which a pile of books, potions, and machines lay. He made a symbol in the air with his fingers, and a piece of parchment shot from under the books and landed on the desk in front of him. A quill flew to him from the other end of the table and remained suspended in the air above the parchment, ready to record whatever he wished. "What is your name, child?" "Asha, your highness." "Well, Asha, and how old are you?" 17. "Where do you live?"
Azalea Village. It's west of the harbor in the town of St. Elizabeth.
"How long have you worked in the castle?"
A year.
"Who are your parents?"
Sakina and Antonio. My father died last year.
"I'm very sorry. It must be difficult living without a father. I know what it's like to lose someone dear to you. When I was a young man, before I learned magic, I lost my home and my family." Magnifico spoke quietly, almost in a whisper. Asha had never heard this voice of his before, and had never seen his face filled with so much pain and sadness. But these feelings flashed across his face for only a tiny moment. Whenever he performed in the arena, he appeared majestic, steadfast, and powerful. He somehow seemed more human now. Magnifico walked towards a tapestry on the wall. In the embroidery was a depiction of the various stages of his life, from peasant to king. In the lower right-hand corner was a village which apparently suffered a fire, and in the place with the most damage, a family. "When I was a peasant, a ship of pirates attacked our village. They took the people as slaves, burned our homes, and the king bowed his head and clenched his fist. Green waves of electricity moved around his hand for a moment.
"I'm so sorry," said Asha. "That's why I want to help you. I want to make sure that never happens to anyone in Rosas."
"Follow me," said the king, walking towards a large glass wall that separated the tower from the library. He spread his arms, raised his staff, and recited an incantation. Suddenly the wall was opened, and the room was flooded with light from the many windows that overlooked the city. But Asha had no time to think of that, for the first thing she noticed were the hundreds of crystal balls hanging from the ceiling, countless glowing blue orbs with the images of various people, wishes. "Everything in Rosas exists in a delicate balance. The people bring their wishes to me, and I take away the memory of them, so if they are not granted towards..." I'm sorry, excuse me. I read it wrong. Okay, sorry. "Everything in Rosas exists in a delicate balance," said the king. "The people bring their wishes to me, and I take away the memory of them, so if they are not granted during their lifetime, they will not regret their decision and can live free and fulfilled lives without yearning for the one thing they cannot have. I examine the wishes, and after careful inquiry into the character and connections of a person, I grant a wish once a month in a ceremony. With quick movements of his hands, Magnifico created a whirlwind that carried the orbs downwards. They floated and danced between them, one more beautiful than the other. Asha was speechless. Her gaze turned from one glowing ball to another, examining the images that appeared in them. But suddenly she held her breath. Her little brother Sebastian's wish floated in one of the orbs, the one that had just flown to her. Without thinking about it, she reached for the wish and clasped it tightly in her hands. Inside was an image of her brother playing the guitar, inspiring and delighting those around him with his songs. A wish so simple and beautiful. The king noticed her interest and joined her.
This is my brother Sebastian. Your Majesty, could you consider granting his wish in the ceremony today?
The king stood still, visibly taken aback. Ah, so you're getting to the point, are you? You know, others usually wait at least a month or two, perhaps a year before asking a favor from me.
Oh no, sir, I didn't mean to sound demanding or anything.
No, it's perfectly all right. Let's have a look at it. He raised his hand, and Asha placed the orb in his palm with a hope and smile. He began to look at it with interest and skepticism. It's truly a beautiful wish, to inspire others with music and words. But to what end? A coup d'etat? A rebellion?
What?
No, my brother would never. I'm sorry, Asha, but this wish is too dangerous.
What? Dangerous? My brother wouldn't do anything to harm the people of Rosas.
The king's face lost all expression. He raised his hand sharply, and all the wishes, including Sebastian's, flew back into the air out of Asha's reach. He returned to the table and busied himself amidst the cauldron and various alchemical devices.
Do some of those wishes never come true?
Not some, most.
But that's not right. People give them to you with the hope you will grant them one day. If you don't intend to fulfill them, why don't you just return them?
The king placed the bottle on the table and turned around, puzzled.
Asha, haven't you been paying attention? It is not possible to grant every wish. What about my brother's wish? What is so dangerous about it?
Maybe nothing and maybe everything. It is too early to tell. He is only a child. I'm not saying he belongs to people with ulterior motives who would abuse the fulfillment of his wish, but I cannot afford to take risks. Not everyone has good intentions, and you can never tell in advance. Think about it.
What about the other wishes? Are they dangerous too, or do they simply not suit you?
She almost swallowed the last words, but it was too late. Magnifico frowned and sighed heavily. Without taking his eyes off Asha, he snapped his fingers and several wishes descended in front of him. He picked up the first one and showed it to her. In it, a woman flew up to the clouds together with the birds. Imagine this, Asha. I'm giving wings to this woman today. Fine, but what if tomorrow she falls and breaks her neck? Some children will lose their mother because of my decision. The king released the orb back into the air and took another in his hands, where a young man became a legendary thief whose adventures were written about in books. There's nothing wrong with seeking adventure, but if I grant this wish, how many people will he hurt on his way to glory? And if I give him back his wish and he tries to grant it himself, how many families will lose everything they have because of him before I can stop him? This particular person is the best baker in the entire kingdom. He supports himself and his family with an honest job. What will happen if I restore his memory of this particular wish? Do you know the answer? Then the king took another wish that showed a young man and woman kissing in each other's arms around the tree. This man wishes this woman to love him, but that would take away her free will. Besides, she already loves another, so it is impossible for me to grant it. Since it will never happen, it is better it remains here so he can forget about it and move on with his life. As for this, he said, indicating a wish with a woman steering a ship through outer space, I don't think this even needs to be addressed. Asha stood speechless. I made a promise to protect my people, and I will do so even if it means their wishes never come true. At least they will live in safety and without the memory of the wishes they have surrendered to me that would never come true anyway, and they will also be happy. Magnifico snapped his fingers once more, and the wishes returned to the dough. He straightened up and adjusted his cloak and turned his back on Asha. I think you better go now. Asha was stunned by those words. Suddenly, she felt a courage so enormous that it overshadowed everything else. The people of Rosas are good, she protested. They deserve better than that. You have no right to lord their wishes over them as if you were some sort of god. This time, the king turned sharply to her with something terrifying in his eyes. I decided who deserves what, he roared. Those who killed my wife and child also wanted to fulfill their wishes. Their vile, selfish, greedy wishes. The blast made Asha flinch. Just at that moment, the door to the hall opened and Queen Amaya entered. My lord, the ceremony is about to begin. You should prepare. The king turned his attention to his wife, but Asha kept her eyes on him. Is something wrong, my lord? No, everything's fine, said Magnifico with a newfound composure. He ran a hand through his white hair, which looked as though it had been blasted. Amaya, will you please escort Asha to the courtyard so she can attend the ceremony with her loved ones? Yes, Magnifico, said the queen, looking confused. With slumped shoulders, Asha walked towards the door, but just before she descended the spiral staircase, the king called to her. Asha, I will not fulfill your brother's wish, but I will protect it like all the others, and I want you to know that... Asha, I will not fulfill your brother's wish, but I will protect it like all the others. And I want you to know that even though I don't accept you as my student, it does not necessarily mean that your own wish or your mother's wish will never come true. You and your mother still have the same chance as everybody else. Asha felt as though cold water had poured down her back. She looked down at the ground and left the room. She had failed her interview, and worse, she had destroyed her brother's chance. How would she tell him his wonderful wish will never come true? No, she wouldn't let it go. Now that she knew her brother's wish, she would do everything in her power to make it come to pass. A spark of fiery determination kindled inside her.